Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Bradbury Group, New Zealand's best weekly political argument, hosted by the militant, Marxist, anti-Santa, Martyn Bradbury. The Bradbury Group is streamed live on Rover, Sky TV, YouTube and Facebook. Proudly sponsored by Wātea, journalism you can trust. Let the arguments begin.
Kia ora Aotearoa. The true demarcation of power in a late-stage capitalism, liberal progressive democracy is the 1% richest plus the 9% enablers versus the 90% rest of us. And once you see politics through that lens, the left can never lose an election again. Welcome to the Bradbury Group Election 26, New Zealand's best weekly political argument. I'm your host, the editor of the daily blog, Martyn Bradbury. Bomber to my comrades, Mr. Bradbury if you're nasty. My pronouns are us and we. Coming up on this evening's show, the political panel all-stars tonight are NZME business journalist Fran O'Sullivan, Labour Party candidate for Tamaki, Max Harris, and former New Zealand Herald columnist Matthew Hooton. Tonight's 1-on-1 in 10 is the leader of the Labour Party, Chris Hipkins, on media scrutiny double standards, Fisheries Amendment Bill and the new conservation land sell-off, Bishop Brian Tamaki's latest attack on the Indian community, and the lessons from Keir Starmer's demise. Our extra 1-on-1 in 10 tonight is New Zealand Council of Trade Unions President Sandra Grey on this government's war on workers and how the unions will fight back this election. Shout out to Kiwi Scoot and Kiwi Bird for moderating tonight's YouTube page. Good evening to all the Bradbury Easters online watching right now. You make this show one of the most watched live podcasts in New Zealand, and your comments will appear on screen as we go. Shout out to our Wātea, Facebook, Rover, Spotify, Apple Podcast and Sky TV whānau. Remember to like and subscribe because that's all that is holding the fourth estate together right now. And our Twitter panel this evening is Tim Selwyn. He'll be tweeting live online at Twitter, hashtag the Bradbury Group. Before all that, however, is this week's War on News. Brothers and sisters, so it's 115 days of Trump's 3-week war that he's already won 17 times, and the strait is still shut after Trump lashed out on social media and threatened Iran again, just as JD Vance was meeting to negotiate America's surrender in Switzerland. For everyone keeping score at home, the process has so far been week 1, I've won. Week 2, I've won again. Week 3, I've won so many times, you should all help me win some more. Week 4, why aren't you helping me win more? I'm going to punish everyone who isn't helping me win. Week 5, I'm pulling out of NATO because you won't help me win. Week 6, I'm going to eradicate a 6,000-year-old civilization and promise to cause war crimes. Week 7, I'm getting bored of this. Week 8, I've won so many times, I'm now going to invade Cuba. Week 9, this is an AI picture of me as Jesus. Week 10, that picture was actually of a doctor. I'm so bored of winning. Weeks 11 through to 14, I'm really bored now. Let's have a cage fight. And week 15, I have totally won. Here's $324 billion in your bank account. At this stage, if Trump's strategy doesn't alarm you, you're the problem. You are the problem. Don't forget that the Prime Minister, Chris Luxon, initially wanted to support this fiasco. Talking of crazy statements, Simeon Brown warned National Party faithful at their conference in the weekend that Winston would go with Labour, which is hilarious because most of the left would prefer syphilis to doing a deal with Winston. The New Zealand left would rather defend cycle lanes in a farming town hall than do a deal with Winston. The New Zealand left would prefer to nationalise potholes than share a cabinet table with another define a moment rant. If National's best argument to convince people to vote National is because the left want to cut a deal with Winston, then National needs a new argument. And finally this week, Shane Jones's fishing industry pork barrel Fisheries Amendment Bill was so private limo extreme that even National balked at the self-interest. Do you appreciate how venal shit must be for the National Party to say, you know what, Shane? Bit crony capitalism, bro. When the National Party is pausing legislation because the donors' interests are sticking so far out of the law that it embarrasses even them, You get the feeling Matua Shane was taking the piss, as well as all those fishing industry donations. When challenged on the limo costs of his mining industry international conference jamboree by Nicola Willis, the great Matua said, and I quote, "Provoke the Matua at your peril." Which begs the question, is the Matua stroking out? Shane refers to himself in the third person so often, he's had to get a separate tax code. Salute to Matt Watson and the recreational fishing community enforcing the Fisheries Amendment Bill down. People power before Shane's donors always. The political panel all-stars up shortly. Whānau, but first this week's 1-on-1 in 10 with Labour leader Chris Hipkins. Kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show, and thank you for being available to the Fourth Estate. Your democracy is grateful. Chris? He can't hear? Da-da-da, da-da-da. I think on mute. Are you on mute?
I can't actually hear anything that you're saying, Bomber.
There we go. He's on. Chippy, I want to start tonight comparing the mainstream media double standards we see when it comes to scrutiny of Labour's costings with that of Nationals, because the attention on your supposed phantom budget hole of $18 billion alongside criticism of your brilliant bus fare cap versus the lack of examination over Nationals' $56 billion roads of national significance budget hole seems infuriating. Do you think Labour get a fair deal from the media?
You look very animated, but I can't hear a word that you're saying.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Can we working on that, studio?
Well, now I can see Matthew Hooton. I don't know what's going on now.
Can he hear?
You, but I couldn't hear a word that Bomber was saying.
All right. We can hear Matthew Hooton, can't hear me. Can you hear me yet? No?
Yeah.
Yes? No?
How are you?
Hold on.
Yeah,
We've got
good.
The studio's working on it.
Yeah. Are you still allowed to do these things?
I think Chris and Matthew are having a conversation now. Guys, are we on?
What's going on there? Now I can't see anything. The rest of the show, it's disappeared as well.
Can't see anything, can't hear us. Okay. What are we doing, studio?
No. Where are you? Are you in Wellington or Auckland or?
No.
Yeah.
Everything's on. Okay.
Oh, very good.
Well, unfortunately, it looks like Chris Hipkins is having a conversation
I thought it was an interesting decision to it. Oh, here we go.
Can you hear me?
No, can't hear you, Bomber.
Bugger. Let's see.
Can you hear these other people
in the studio?
I can hear you, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, hold on. Jesus Christ. Let's just do this. Okay. We got... what is your position on the double standards that we're seeing in the media when it comes to the kind of scrutiny you're getting over your budget issues and the kind of scrutiny that National's getting? Well, they've got a $56 billion hole in their funding. You supposedly have an $18 billion hole in yours. Do you think Labour is getting a fair deal from the media? Oh, we've lost... No, that's not working either? Okay, we're not working yet. Can we go to Sandra? Are we able to perhaps go to Sandra and get... Yes, we can go to Sandra? Oh, this is all over the place. This is not a good show. This is not a good show at all.
Where's Sandra?
Do we have Sandra?
Do it back to front. Do the panel first.
Okay, you know what? We're going to do the panel first, and then we're going to go to. We'll see if we can get our guests on at the end of the show. I'm just having to move through the the script right now. Bear with us, folks. Bear with us. Sometimes it screws up. It's all live.
There's Hooton.
Well, there's Hooton. Thank Jesus. At least we've got Hooton. Sorry. Still moving through. Okay. No. Sorry, folks. Bear with us, folks. It's all live. It's one of the joys of live Hold on. Here we go. Okay, now to our political panel all-stars. Andrew Little, get out of the way because there is a new cheerleader for the capital in town. Our first panellist is a libertarian Svengali moral shepherd of the right, former New Zealand Herald columnist and now new editor of The Post, born-again Wellingtonian. It's absolutely, positively Dr. Matthew Hooton. Kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show. One word to describe the week, please, sir. Oh, for the love of Christ. Why can't we hear him? Oh,
and then
geez.
I thought nothing was going to happen. And then the National Party and the Green Party came up with some pretty interesting policies. And then there's been an exciting poll tonight that suggests that Chris Hipkins here will be the Prime Minister again. So everything's been happening over the last few days.
Our next panellist is a mix between Harry Potter and Luke Skywalker. His team Hufflepuff, armed with a lightsaber, Labour Party candidate for Tamaki, and the last great left-wing hope, Max Harris. Kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show.
Bomber. Thank you.
One word to describe the week, please, sir.
Disappointing, again, from the government, who seems to want to attack everything that we are proud of. First, it's Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Next, it's nuclear free on the table. Now it's our conservation estate. Up to 60% of our conservation estate at risk of being sold off.
Yeah.
I want to keep what we're proud of in this country, and I worry that if we don't take action in the coming months, we'll wake up and we'll have lost everything that we think makes this country special.
Preach. And last but certainly not least, she's the doyen of the political right. And now Hooton has left. She's the only other reason you would buy New Zealand Herald subscription. NZME business journalist, the unstoppable force of nature that is Fran O'Sullivan. Kia ora, comrade.
You nearly stuffed that one up, Bomber.
Tell me, the show's gone to hell this morning. Tell me your one word of the week.
Oh, piffle.
Yes?
Yeah, I think the whole family analogy, like you've had the Prime Minister talking for some time about relationships with business, he's not wanting parent-child, he's wanting parent-parent, and now you've got, the National Party campaign manager saying the parent doesn't want the children at all when it comes to their own family, in other words, the coalition. Yes. So I'm getting a bit confused with this. I really think they need to put the family metaphors away.
Brothers and sisters, let's get into tonight's show. Issue 1, isn't National forcing compulsory super so that they can remove pensions in the future? Issue 2, will Green Party tax policy punish billionaires and property boomers? And Issue 3 tonight, National, Act and New Zealand First all gloriously turning on each other. Plus, we'll have a final word at the end of the show where each panellist gets to go to the mountaintop to see who breaches broadcasting standards this week. My money is on Max Harris talking about billionaires. Let's kick things off with issue 1, and that was the National Party conference over the weekend, where National, after slashing KiwiSaver subsidies for us, now wants 12% compulsory contributions. National literally bombed KiwiSaver to save the village. Matthew Hooton, the right are already pushing men's testing of super now. How much louder will those demands become once everyone is enrolled in compulsory KiwiSaver?
Well, that's a long way ahead. Before that issue would occur, the Labour Party and the National Party are now on record as saying that they would not make plans, they would not change superannuation in the meantime, or as long as they're in office. I think we should believe both Nicola Willis and Chris Hipkins when they say that, simply because, as we've seen since the 1980s, New Zealanders won't tolerate changes to superannuation, and they'll throw out a government that does try to change it. That's why this policy, which it goes back to 1972 in its own way. My whole lifetime, this debate's been going on. That's why this policy, I think, is so significant, and it'll be interesting to see if the Labour Party does confirm that it broadly supports this approach, and then we'll have a bipartisan consensus around it, which would be quite remarkable.
Follow-up question. The boomers were given cradle-to-grave subsidisation of their entire precious existence, whereas Gen Xers had to be the first user pays generation. Why should Gen X have more intergenerational theft by raising super now the boomers have gotten theirs?
Look, I try not to say things.
Now you're
that
the
are
editor of the
unkind
Post. Sure.
about Gen X, obviously.
Oh,
But-
what did you say? You're blaming Gen X.
Well, I would say that just as we come up to turning 60 and so forth, I don't see any reason to suggest that
Watch your
we will be any
subsidy.
more keen on superannuation changes than the baby boomers were, and I don't see any reason that the millennials would be any keener either. And, I'm even starting to sort of look ahead to that super gold card. And I think that one policy, perhaps that one political party could promote, I think it really should be extended to free travel internationally in New Zealand, everywhere in the world. And I think that policy should probably come into place. I would say the right time for that would be about 2037. The super gold card should apply. Free travel for everyone over 65 on Air New Zealand. Surely that would poll well.
Fran, making KiwiSaver compulsory sets the scene for removing universal super. How politically poisonous will that realisation be to the electorate once they understand it?
Oh, there's no way that's going to happen in the short term. I mean, if you look, the ship of fiscal state is absolutely sailing towards the rocks. That national super, what's in the kitty, what the government can do. I mean, they get tax back from the super fund each year, and it's more like a kind of tax go round now. But what's happening is it won't in any way cover what's coming down the track. And by the time KiwiSaver people have saved enough, it's still going to be. I mean, how many people have got massive savings from Gen X sitting in their accounts? Clearly I'm a boomer, and I advocate for means testing of super. I don't advocate, advocate for universality going. I think it should go to those who need it, not necessarily the deserving poor, because your generation, the Gen Xers, will want to be in there just as much as mine.
We've got nothing. We've got a kick in the head.
Your problem is you haven't had enough children as well. Enough taxpayers coming behind you to pay the taxes to keep the Ponzi scheme going. I mean, this is the problem. So I'm blaming you. I mean, our generation sort of did our bit. At least we had 2.5, but,
Follow-up question. National supporters at conference say they are cautiously optimistic about the election. We just saw TVNZ's polling. Why are they cautiously optimistic?
Oh, well, I think they think they can play the parent and they'll swing more back towards them in terms of the vote. I think there's too many wild cards in that today. I mean, you assume that Maori Party is going to soak up all those Maori seats. They may not. Labour may get 1 or 2 of those. What happens if Opportunities gets over the 5%?
Right.
Where do they sit in any post-election wrangle? I think it's too early to call. Obviously, there's stuff there that ought to worry. I think the other thing seems to me, I was quite surprised, is that Christopher Luxon is now rating marginally ahead of Christopher Hipkins.
Yeah.
And that's been the first, Chris Hipkins, I should say, and that's been the first time for some time that that's occurred.
Max, part of the political project of the right is to underfund public services until they fall over and then suggest privatisation is the cure to an injury they caused. Undermining the universalism of super by stealth via compulsory KiwiSaver would be a great victory for the right, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what this government has done in other areas, they are chipping away at the few universal services that we have. So one example, the Disability Support Services Bill that went through around the time of budget, in the fine print allowed the introduction of means testing for disability support. I mean, that's very damaging for a whole lot of families that need that support. And I think we do have a Labour Party this election that has come out strongly in favour of broad-based universal policies like the $20 public transport fare cap in Wellington, Auckland, Christchurch, $10 in the regions, universal free maternity scans, universal free prescriptions, universal free doctor's visits. I think those policies are so important because when the middle class benefits, when we all benefit, we're willing to defend these services, which is why we've had super for so long, why we've had the pension for so long, as Matthew points out. And, nice to welcome Matthew Hooton, the new champion of universalism.
Follow-up question. What is Labour's case for universal super, Max?
Well, Bill Rosenberg wrote a good article this week showing that there's actually no major difference between the affordability of our super scheme and others around the world. I think what's so important is, at a basic principle level, you contribute to the country, you deserve some support at the end of your life. I, in Tamaki, have been doing a lot of door knocking and hearing a lot of older people struggling, including some in retirement villages who face rising costs. So people need support. They need support right now, and they want the stability and security of knowing that that's going to stay universal going into the future.
Quick round to all of you. How many years of compulsory contribution will National wait until announcing means testing to deny us all a pension? A, 3 years. B, 6 years. C, 9 years. Matthew Hooton.
Well, I don't think that this generation of National Party politicians have any likelihood of changing that at all. So, I mean, it depends how long this government survives. Then there'll be a Labor government, then there might be a National government, then there might be a Labor government, and maybe at some far distant future date, a government might be elected that for some reason changed the superannuation settings. But as I said, and I think in France, I just can't believe that that government would succeed, and I think it'd be thrown out. So I think this has often been called the third rail of New Zealand politics. Yes. We haven't dealt with this problem the way we should have. The Kirk government tried to. I think Sir Roger Douglas set up that scheme for the Kirk government, and then Muldoon stuffed that up, and then the New Zealand people made a terrible mistake in 1997 with that referendum, and then Michael Cullen did some great work really with the Super Fund and with KiwiSaver, and now hopefully that story, I was born in 1972, it's been my whole life, that story will hopefully finally, that story has come to an end and there is a consensus on this topic that will last.
Fran, 3, 6 and 9 years before they start going, let's means test.
Well, I think Matthew's right. It is the third rail. I actually think it should be happening within the next 3 years. And also, I'm marginally in favour of capital gains taxes, other things to raise the taxes. Yep. I mean, we're going to be in a situation where if we don't do something, we're going to have a full-blown fiscal crisis. We've already had that served up to us by the ratings agencies.
That's right.
What do? They're not going to cut too much out of the public system if they don't touch super, if they don't this, don't that. There's not too many options. It becomes raise taxes more generally, like create more. I mean, you could put up GST, you could bring in a godforsaken wealth tax, you could do land taxes, you do capital taxes, but it seems just about everything that is sensible or could raise revenue, no one really wants to touch. So I think it's, looking into the future, it's not all that great.
Max? 3, 6 or 9?
I won't forecast, where National is going to go. It's hard to tell. But what I will say is I don't see super as a problem. I see it as a core part of our social safety net that I think we should all be proud of. And I think when we talk about means testing, we should remember the injustices that people face under existing means tested services. And I've worked with a lot of people who face that, where the arbitrariness of being on one side of the line, the bureaucracy, the paperwork that we don't want in our other public services, but that we leave people contending with.
Come on. I mean, if you look at, for instance, cabinet ministers on $300,000 a year, do they deserve another $30,000 of super on top? I mean, this is the kind of, it doesn't all cut at the bottom, it cuts at the mid to higher income people, and people there, that's a debate worth having.
You can make the same. If I could just quickly respond,
then that I think he was articulating quite well the concerns about means testing of Professor Milton Friedman of the University of Chicago in the 1960s and 70s. That if you means test things, you get these very high effective marginal tax rates. Which is why Milton Friedman first suggested the universal basic income, and now, of course, I think the top party is for that. Sir Lockwood Smith referred to something like it in his valedictory speech. So, I mean, there is an argument, I think Max is right to identify it, of effective marginal tax rates, and he joins Professor Friedman in that.
Everyone knows that
Well put.
Milton Friedman was never defending universal public services. I mean, friends,
He was invented, the
Spoken
universal
like a
basic
philosopher.
income, is it?
and he was talking about the negative income tax, not the universal basic income. But to Fran's point, the same question can be asked about schools and about healthcare. And I think it's really important that we all have access to these basic services, that we all know unquestionably that we get these services when we need them. And there's a lot of evidence that this is actually a very effective way of addressing deprivation when people need it.
Comrades, we need to move on to issue 2 tonight, and that is, will the Green Party tax policy punish billionaires and property boomers by ratcheting up taxes on them to fund the glorious socialist green utopia? The Greens will introduce a 2.5% tax on the net assets of the super rich above 10 million. There will be an exemption for family homes. They will implement a capital acquisitions tax on assets and gifts received worth over 1 million, with family farms and family homes exempted. They will return the corporate tax rate to 33% for the 0.7% biggest corporations like the supermarket duopoly, energy companies and banks. They will keep the corporation tax rate at 28% for small and medium enterprises, levelling the playing field for local businesses. They will introduce a bank levy of 0.06% on the liabilities of the 4 big banks like Australia has. They will make big tech companies pay their fair share by enforcing the 5% withholding tax rate on the profits they send offshore. And they will reverse Luxon's landlord tax cuts and the changes to the bright light test. Fran, I don't care that they were $800 million out in their numbers. What is not to love? Surely this policy platform proves there is a God, and that God is a socialist.
Look, I'm not adverse to proportionality of some of that.
Sure.
But however, this would be a godsend for tax dodge designers. I mean, at the moment, arguably, we are one big international tax dodge designing country as it stands. I mean, we are now marketing ourselves to Australia as somewhere where you pay no capital gains tax, there's no stamp duty, there's no da-da-da-da. And we did exactly the same into Asia at the time of the last housing boom,
Yep.
Big ads in the South China Morning Post, that type of thing. Is this something really to be proud of, or do we need to be looking for some commonality with Australia on some of this? I think we do, frankly, and we face this fiscal crisis. We do have to get some money from somewhere. Yep.
Follow-up question. The right argue that rather than taxing more, we have to grow the pie, but the pie is shrinking, and demanding people suffer waiting for it to grow isn't much of an election campaign. Endure more pain isn't as great a slogan as tax the rich, is it?
No, but I think one of the interesting things, if you do extract more tax, and, it's the old thing, the French saying, the art of taxation is like plucking the goose. You want to do it with the least hissing. So you kind of have a broad kind of basis of taxation. But there's so much that we don't tax, and it's arguable, without going quite as far as the Greens have suggested, that we could actually pluck a little bit more out there. Are they all going to take their toys and leave? I don't think so. No. And if they do, you'd have to question, how much they really have invested in New Zealand. I mean, a lot of the our rich have sold up anyway. They've got, net assets, all of that, which are worth whatever. Some have invested in New Zealand and some are not. Yeah.
Max, NBR Rich List tells us 26 billionaires in New Zealand, many of them douchebags. The worst kind of douchebags. Why shouldn't billionaire douchebags pay more tax?
If I can just pick up on one point that Fran made and answer your question. If we are looking at common ground with Australia, an obvious starting point is a capital gains tax. Australia's had a capital gains tax since 1985. Right. Great to hear Fran support that. And one point I want to make about a capital gains tax is it's not just a matter of fairness, and it does plug a gap in our system. It also starts to build a different kind of economy, because we can have commentators say forever that we've got a property-dependent economy, but until we sort of take the bull by the horns, as Chris Hipkins has done, and actually enact some structural reform and have a capital gains tax, we won't be diversifying the economy. And that's why I support wholeheartedly having both a capital gains tax and a future fund, which is Labour policy, a fund that backs New Zealand businesses and tries to begin that process of diversifying.
Follow-up question. Labour's slow cooker policy release is drip-feeding details, but the Greens have rolled up with a smorgasbord. When will we see Labour stepping up?
We've seen more policies come out in recent months, and there's a simple cost of living package out there. The public transport cap is very well received in Glen Innes, where I was. Lots of people who are travelling more on the train and on the bus in the fuel crisis. I've heard people in the last week excited about free maternity scans and the difference that makes.
Yes.
We've got free prescriptions, which are important and are at the moment adding a cost to people's day-to-day costs. So I actually think there is a good package there, and there will be more coming out.
Matthew, is the danger for Labour that their much leaner election promises won't meet the demands of left-wing voters this year? That the cost of living crisis demands a response Labour doesn't think it can politically pull off?
Yeah, I think Labour has been running a small target strategy, and there's nothing wrong with that in of itself. It's what John Key did, it's what Jacinda Ardern did, with the exception of some silly promises around Kiwi Build and Auckland Light Rail. You know, it's Helen Clark, to some extent, ran a small target strategies. It's a conventional political tactic. But I just think that I think the public mood has moved on from that. And I think that for better or worse, the Greens and the coalition parties are being a bit bolder than we've seen from our governments for almost decades now, really since, the peak of the Helen Clark government with interest-free student loans and so forth. And I think that Labour risks being left behind if it doesn't watch out. Because the coalition, whether by design or just by luck, is sort of running this strategy where they're fighting with one another, and they're saying to people, if you're left wing, you can vote New Zealand First. If you're right wing, you vote ACT. If you're sort of mushy middle, you vote National. And they're offering this menu, and people can select from that. And if Labour's not part of the debate before too long, people will choose from that smorgasbord. Essentially, Labour, is down in tonight's poll. It's
5 points. 5 points.
I suspect we might be seeing a bit of 2002 at the moment, where the national opposition didn't do enough work in its first 3 years in opposition, and it didn't have much to offer in 2002, and so it bled votes to Peter Dunn's United Future Party, and a long time to go. But I kind of think something like that may already be happening to Labour with the Opportunities Party, but let's wait for a few more polls.
Could I jump in just quickly? I do want to contest that. What Labour's done in the last couple of years is build a constituency for a capital gains tax so that everyone just sees it as normal. And we know from polling that more New Zealanders support it than oppose it. And that's been something that many politicians have been timid about for years. So I think that's an important announcement that deserves credit. The Future Fund signals a shift in approach. We've had years of being hands-off in the economy, and it signals an approach of backing business, standing up for universalism in healthcare. That's an important principle as well. So I think we're some way off 2002, when, of course, we had record low national vote under Bill English.
Follow-up question, Hooten. Billionaire Steve Jobs said, and I quote, "I didn't invent the language or mathematics I used. I make little of my own food, none of my own clothes. Everything I do depends on other members of our species and the shoulders that we stand on." I put to you that billionaires stand upon the shoulders of a society and draws their wealth and power from that society with minimal obligations placed upon them. They have benefited from an educated civil society but want to pay sweet bugger all for its upkeep. This Green Party tax policy is as close to recognising that as possible, isn't it?
Well, billionaires pay tax now, and the only question is whether it's enough or too much. That's the debate. I don't think anyone suggests they shouldn't pay any tax at all. The Greens have come up with a range of taxes. They're to be commended for coming up with sensible policy as they see it. It's a coherent package. And I think, as Fran was alluding to, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, it doesn't really matter what any of the political parties say. We're going to have big spending cuts and big tax rises at some point over the next few decades. That's just inevitable. So you just have to choose the taxes you like, and you have to choose the cuts you prefer. I mean, there's no way out of that. Interestingly enough, I think I'm in the minority here. I think I think the Greens support both the capital gains and a welfare tax.
Yes.
But if I had to choose between one or the other, I think I'd go for the wealth tax over the capital gains tax, not at 2.5%, but lower than that. But on the grounds that with a wealth tax, you can set the rate much lower. So it's a broader based, lower rate tax system, which of course was Ruth Richardson and Bill Birch's mantra, low rate, broad base. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And it does surprise me that Labor prefers the sort of capital gains tax, high rate, narrower base. I mean, Max mentioned the property market. Labor's excluding the family home from their policy. Well, that's 70% of residential properties. So it's not really a serious policy that Labor's put forward, whereas I think the Greens' wealth tax is. And I think if Max hadn't been a Labor candidate and was speaking more freely than he's able to now, I think he would be advocating for a wealth tax tonight as well.
The way you are as the editor of the Post. Yeah. Quick round. Elon Musk became a trillionaire this month. Why shouldn't that asshole pay more tax? Fran.
Oh, gosh. Does he pay any?
Probably not.
Well, I imagine
Mars.
It's all kind of, everything goes back into the Mars trip, doesn't it?
Right.
Elon. I kind of quite like him. I mean, he's a Spurges on to the max. We haven't seen a billionaire like a trillionaire. I should say,
no,
like
we
that.
haven't.
Who's going to send the tax collectors around?
Right.
Trump sways all over the place, but he's got to realise something. And at the moment, that the people who've been investing with him and have become on the basis of the script that they've got through their packages, they may well end up being taxed. But I suspect with him it's going to be a cascading thing. I doubt that he'll be pulling much out except for a few toys. I mean, he's consistently invested.
Right. Why shouldn't he pay a lot more tax?
I mean, I guess that's not a matter for us in New Zealand, and we've got an election where we are very focused on a tax future. I think there's a lot of sense in the capital gains tax policy. It's aligned with the company tax rate at 28%, so dispute what Matthew said. And we do have to talk about the future of our economy. At the moment, people are thinking about retraining, and I heard this on the doors in the last couple of weeks, not having any options. So how do we build options in the economy? How do we diversify the economy? And one step is to move away from a property-dependent economy and to have something like the Future Fund to build that investment behind New Zealand business.
But that Future Fund is actually quite minimal. I mean, you're talking about 200 mil, which will be borrowed money, surely. Where's it going to come from? The seed fund, and then you're actually firing in a few state assets and the dividends staying there and not going back to consolidated fund. It's not a simple thing. It's going to require a lot of borrowed investment into it
Sovereign
before
credit.
it gets going.
Sovereign credit.
What
I think that's a little unkind to the Labor Party, Fran. I think. Well, I think you've got to see the Future Fund a little bit like KiwiSaver. It's a start, and over, and the SOE, the shares in those energy companies will go into it, and they'll start collecting the dividends, so the amount will go up. And then at a certain point, it doesn't matter whether it's a Labor government or a national government, and they'll sort of say, well, it does need a bit more active management. So the fund will be able to sell some of the energy shares and buy some shares in other companies, and the size of the state will increase, but it'll become more dynamic over time as people get comfortable with it. And I think that it could end up being a good policy if that is how it evolves over the next couple of decades.
And it's about the shift in direction and the approach to the economy. It's about not tying the hands of government when it comes to SOEs. It's about being more active in relation to the SOEs and reinvesting that rather than having this hands-off approach, which I don't think has served our economy well.
Well, except you are saying that you are going to tie the hands of the fund managers. You're saying they can't touch any of those shares, so the fund will be massively overinvested in aviation and energy, initially anyway. I mean, but eventually I think you'll let any government will eventually loosen those constraints.
Comrades, we need to move on to issue 3 tonight, and that is the spectacle of National, ACT and New Zealand First all turning on each other after Simeon Brown described ACT and New Zealand First as children. Max, Simeon Brown looks like he's 12 going on 13. Is he the best MP to channel National's tough love dad routine?
I mean, that's for the National Party, but what I can tell you is door knocking in Glen Innes on the weekend, hearing about a teacher that left to Western Australia for higher wages, hearing about people who want to get involved in their community but feel like they have no options, hear about care and support workers who don't get any top-ups for fuel crisis. No one is saying, I think the government needs to fight itself more. No one is saying, I think National needs to have more of a go at New Zealand First. I think that's good use of political time.
Matthew, if it is true that ACT and New Zealand First are the children, why have they run circles around the parent? I mean, if we're using Simeon's analogy, isn't this coalition a case of bad parenting?
Well, I mean, I don't... If you want to use the analogy, it's not unusual for teenagers to run rings around their parents. Not to say that's happening in this case, but
it kind of is.
If it almost feels as if there was some secret meeting where the Prime Minister and the 2 coalition leaders decided on this strategy. Now, I'm not saying that happened. I don't think it did. It doesn't matter whether it happened, but this strategy has has emerged. It's evolved, and as I said earlier, I think it's the right one. I think since 1996 there was this belief that coalition governments had to be strong and stable. That was the slogan they would use. Well, it hasn't worked out, particularly for the small parties or even for the large parties in coalition trying to be strong and stable. And maybe political strategists since 1996 might have been wrong that voters wanted that. Who knows? But it does seem to me that by having this, let's just imagine hypothetically it was all performative, and it seems to be working. At least this month.
Well, not in the polls.
Everyone's talking about the coalition parties plus the Greens, and a little bit about TOP and Labor did have, Max mentioned those policies. They got sort of one day in the media, but the coalition seems to be just becoming dominant through that strategy.
Dominant and losing in the current polls. Fran, does the sight of all 3 bickering with each other build confidence for voters?
Oh, at the end of the day, I wanted to call it piffle before. I mean, it's interesting. Some of the, the acerbic kind of comments that come from David Seymour, which, he's been known to refer to Simeon as a cherubic former bank teller, so, that kind of thing. So this banter has gone back and forward, and maybe Simeon had got to hear a bit of that, because he did refer in that way at a seminar I was moderating, and that was full of National Party people too. So it's kind of interesting. I think it's a bit like the Prime Minister's, parent, child sort of mantra. It's been said. Let's move on. I think it's occupied a bit of humour, but it's already exhausted itself this week. So I would like to see a little bit more evidence, even when they, put out their policies, that there is some kind of consensus on major stuff that will come through.
Quick round. At what point does Winston pull the plug and call for an early election? Matthew Hooden.
I don't think he will. It's not going to happen.
Not going to happen? Max?
No.
I would never want to try to speculate about Winston's motivations or next
Fran?
steps.
Well, the matua, as he refers to himself, in the third person, he might be relieved because he's got a pretty massive program of town hall meetings, that type of thing around the country, and he's working really hard. So they're keeping that up, and they are getting bums on seats, and I think they'll just keep going. The poll's been a bit bumpy for them in the last couple of ones. They'll want to try and build that up again.
Comrades, we need to wrap the show with a final word. Fran, your final word this week?
Oh, sweet as. I've actually having a really good week. So I've been trying not to think about politics too much, but then again, it's only, what day are we? Tuesday. So plenty of time for my week to be turned upside down.
Max, your final word, please, sir.
Deflating. I was thinking about the loss of venues and social life in Auckland. We had Flying Out and Neck of the Woods say because of the long economic downturn, they're closing because people are not spending in the cost of living crisis. And I'm hearing in Glen Innes people continuing to struggle under this cost of living crisis. So it does feel like the government's kind of put up its hands and given up on trying to do anything. I don't remember, and I don't think most people remember anything in the budget to deal with the cost of living crisis. What I remember is life getting harder for state housing tenants who at this time faced a rise in rents to 30% of income. So I want to see a government that's more hands-on on the cost of living, and we're not getting that.
Matthew, your final word this week, please, sir.
Well, I'm quite encouraged by the quality of this discussion once again, which deeply surprises me on this being the Bradbury group, but we had the police minister on organised crime, and I've enjoyed it, and I hope the listeners have. And I've got to say that Max is in a difficult situation here and has shown extraordinarily good diplomatic skills. And so hopefully we've been talking to a future foreign minister here, which would be great because that'll keep him away from economics.
Thank you, comrades. And now to my final word. Brothers and sisters, on July 2nd, which is Thursday next week, the Keith Locke Memorial Debate is happening, 7 p.m. at Auckland University Law School, moderated by Professor Jane Kelsey. This year's moot is Hate Speech Laws Threaten Free Speech. The negative team will be captained by listener columnist Simon Wilson, with Anjam Rahman and Yasmin Surin. And the affirmative team will be captained by myself, Stuff columnist Verity Johnson, and civil rights lawyer Thomas Beagle. Finally, a free speech debate that doesn't include those arseholes from the Free Speech Union. It will be an amazing night there. Limited tickets left at the Auckland University Law School venue. To get the last remaining tickets, please go to keithlock.org.nz to book them, or watch the live stream feed we will set up on the Daily Blog, and maybe the new editor of The Post can get Stuff to carry the debate on their front page live on the night as well. We'll find out. We'll do details. Get your tickets. It will be a great debate and a beautiful way to remember and honour Keith Locke. I'm sorry about the technical problems at the beginning of the show. We will get Chippy and we will get Sandra back on and book them for future shows. In solidarity, the revolution continues. Ka pai Aotearoa.